Welcome to the H.E.R podcast with Kristin Sampson, offering a message of hope, encouragement, and reflection with special guests.
All right, welcome back to another episode. We are taking time to get behind the scenes of ministers and their wives, where they are, how they got to where they are, and getting to know them more on a personal level, not just the person behind the pulpit and the wife helping out. So today we have a special guest, two special guests. We have the Davenports. We have Larry and Miss JJ. Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you for asking us.
Well, we're super.
We weren't doing anything anyway today.
No. Not busy at all. For CYC, what's that?
No. See.
No, I really do appreciate y'all taking time. And I know y'all are very busy people. And that's one of the reasons why I've asked you guys to be on this, because you two are just outstanding and have done amazing things. And y'all look like you have it all together at all the time. And just so many people look up to you, both of you. And I know my daughter especially thinks the world of you, Miss JJ.
Her. Oh, I love her.
You've helped her in so many ways you just don't even know. And so y'all are both very special and dear to my heart, and we really appreciate you guys. All right, let's just dive in. Let's get to know you guys. Okay, first tell us how long y'all been married and how many kids you have.
How long have we been married?
Well,
30 something?
30 something, yeah. It'll be 34 years this year.
I'm not good at math.
I understand. Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh yeah, 34 this year.
Wow. So we have two children by birth.
Two
we
grown
have
children.
two grown children. Ellen is 28 and Emma's 22.
That's right.
And then we have two bonus kids. Slade is 5 and Scout is 3.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
And they are precious.
They're precious. They're so sweet. And I was kind of thought maybe we're too old for this, but so far we've handled it.
Two grandchildren also.
Yes.
Oh, well, congratulations. Yeah.
Two grandchildren. So Beckett's 3, and then Cora Rose just turned 1.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
A full family, full house, lots of love.
Lap.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So never a dull moment, always things going on.
That's right. Always something. There's always a project. We're very project oriented, which sometimes isn't a positive thing, because I have to force myself to be people oriented as well.
Gotcha.
It's like the Mary Martha thing.
Yes.
You know, Martha liked the projects,
Yes.
and that's how I am. I like, what's my next project? What's my next thing? So I have to remind myself it's really about people. It's not about projects. It's about people.
That's a good thing to remember. That's hard to do though.
Yeah.
Good to remember. All right. When did you first feel the need or desire to go into ministry?
I never did. I didn't. I honestly didn't. I grew up a preacher's kid.
Okay.
And I married an engineer. He was an engineer at the NASA contractor. But Larry was very called. And I think it was maybe our second date. He said, I'm not going to do this forever. I want to go into ministry. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever,
Yeah. How do you go from being an engineer to wanting to be a minister?
I had always been in ministry. I mean, from the time I started college at UNA, I was doing part-time youth ministry and leading singing and speaking, but I still felt like, hey, I need to go into engineering. I need to do this. So I went ahead and pursued that. But even when I got to Florida, where she was going to church, I was teaching the teen class there and leading singing, and it was part of who I wanted to be. And of course, back home in Florence, Alabama, there was International Bible College, and I knew that it was there, and so it was kind of in my mind all along.
So what was that final step then that led y'all to say, okay, yeah, this is what we need to do? When did y'all decide together that this is it?
Well, there were a couple of things that happened. One, we had asked to meet with an older, very successful couple that went to church with us, and we were calling on them for some financial advice, and he thought we were coming to him saying we were ready to go into full-time ministry, and he had written a check to pay for 4 years of college at a Christian university for me.
Wow.
And so I wondered, is somebody trying to send us a message here?
That's a pretty big message.
It was.
Yeah.
And there were 2 or 3 events that happened like that back to back.
Yeah.
And
I think
finally,
the ultimate thing, though, was I guess we'd been married about 5 years when I got pregnant with our first child. And that was what kind of sealed the deal. He said, I don't want to raise kids here where we are.
there was that.
I want to raise kids, back where I'm from, where there's Mars Hill Bible School, where there's International Bible College, is what Heritage was called at the time.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to be. And I was like, I don't know these things that you speak of. I don't know what could be better than Florida. We live on the beach. And
Right.
that's all I knew. That's where I was from.
Yeah.
And he said, you're just going to have to trust me. So it was my very Sarah time frame where I just had to trust and follow, and God just has a tendency to work everything for good and work
Absolutely.
everything out, and even
Yeah.
better than I could imagine.
And we made the move, and all the pegs just started falling into place.
And it's part of our story. I mean, if we went through the details of how God worked things so specifically for good to make it happen, to where we could go when we had been to college, but of course we went back and got our Bible degrees, just put everything into place, and the jobs, the people, the congregations, the support. And it wasn't easy, but it was good, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And we knew we were doing what we were supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
And that's a good feeling.
It is. It's neat how things that come natural for God becomes easier to walk through in a way. Not all like it's complicated,
Yeah.
but yet He allows and gives you that peace through that.
Right. Right. And I think too, even through difficult times, if you know that this is what you're supposed to do, it just
Absolutely.
makes it easier. This is just part of it. This isn't the part of life. I mean, this isn't the reward. And
Yeah.
I say that all the time. I mean,
Absolutely.
this isn't where everything's supposed to fall, exactly into place and be
Yeah.
perfect all the time, and everybody's happy, and you
Yeah.
never cry, and nobody gets sick. No, that's not right here.
Right.
That's later. And so sometimes we're going to have to get through some stuff, but God's going to work it for good.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic because I know, like when my husband was called into ministry, which we won't go into all that, but I know I had some reluctancy of that and the concern of moving and not knowing where you're going to end up. So how did you work through that together with, did y'all just embrace it? Did you?
Larry has always, since I've known him, just had huge amount of faith. I don't understand why or how, but his faith was always just so much more than mine. And he never doubted that it was all going to be fine. He never doubted. But of course I'm like, okay, these are our bills. If our house
Right.
doesn't sell, how are we going to,
Right.
make this happen? And he was like, JJ, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. We're doing everything we can, and we're praying and trusting that God's going to take care of it. And he did. But it was one of those things. And I think too, I was kind of young, so
His face is
Well, now,
priceless. I'm loving your
of course,
face.
we
That's sweet.
scheduled the date we were leaving. We had the moving truck there. The house was not selling. It wasn't showing.
no
And-
houses were selling.
And you remember the day the moving truck left was the same day that we closed.
And I remember we got the
Wow.
call, like literally one person went and looked at our house,
Uh-huh.
made an offer. We said yes, it was great, and scheduled the move, which Larry just picked a date and said, this is when we need to move, get our things moved in. And then when we said the closing, we literally drove the moving van to the closing of the house. I mean, God just worked
in our
it
car.
so perfectly.
Got in our car, took the check to the bank, and deposited it on our way to
Thank
Alabama.
you.
On our way. And
Don't look back.
yeah, and that was just
Yeah.
the beginning of just long strings of ways that God reassures you that He's here,
Absolutely.
He's got you, He's got
Absolutely.
you. But it's hard because you're seeing the tiny little picture of just today and maybe a little glimpse of yesterday, and He's seeing the whole thing.
Yeah.
But we don't know what that is, so we're just
Yeah.
trusting that He's going to work it out.
Yeah, because we're imperfect people living in an imperfect world, and we're gonna have bumps and trials and tribulations all along the way, no matter how good of a life, how good we're trying to be. So during those difficult times, what keeps you two going in pursuing ministry when you have these big challenges that come up? Because they do.
Yeah, I think this has become like my theme. Philippians 4, 6, actually 6 through 8, I guess, is what it's going to be. And it's how I cope by praying, thanking God that He's already got it worked out. I pray with thanksgiving. And in that, if you look at that verse, then you're going to get that peace because He does. He already has it worked out. I don't know what it is. I
Yeah.
don't know how He's working it out.
Yeah.
And it probably isn't even something I've even thought of. But I pray, and then it goes on to tell you what to think about. Where to put your mind. So if we put our mind on those troubles and those really negative things, which you can, go down a rabbit hole
Oh,
with all that
absolutely.
kind of stuff. You're going to have anxiety and everything. No, don't think about that. Think about things that are pure. Think about things that are lovely, good report, and go down the list. And it's really, really hard to be anxious about things when you're doing it that way.
Absolutely.
And we had some difficult times in ministry, just starting out in full-time ministry. There were roadblocks that came up. I remember we were trying to get the kids together to go to an event, and we would meet at the church building, and two kids would show up, and
Mm.
and one of the parents would say, "Well, I guess nobody's coming. Let's just go home." And we'd already decided, no, we got the cream of the crop here. We're moving on. And
great.
so we did the event anyway, and we just kept going like that until we were filling up the 15 passenger van, and then we had to buy a 26 passenger bus, and then we bought a 38 passenger bus, and we were taking the bus and the van. So there's you just need to decide in ministry. It's not about the numbers. We were
Absolutely.
not going to base success on the numbers.
Right.
We were going to base success on the value of the spirituality that we're receiving and the growth that was happening. And when we concentrated on that, God took care of the rest.
That is fantastic.
And it's about
Yeah.
building relationships. I really feel like we're here. The whole all of Christendom is about relationships. Your
Yes.
relationship with God, your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your children, your relationship with the church. It's about relationships, isn't it? And our
Absolutely.
job, and goes back to the Mary Martha thing,
Yeah.
how I need to be more Mary, is about building those relationships and fostering those. And so if we had two kids go on the trip, we'd do our best to build good relationships with them. Find out, that's an opportunity to find out about them, talk to them, and really like see who this child is, build a relationship like that. So it was kind of a blessing.
So
We had other stories like that too that
Yeah.
happened early on. Had the kids weren't coming to the youth events, and finally one of the youth group members pulled us aside and said, "Oh, did you know that this girl in the youth group, whenever y'all plan a devotional, she'll call the other kids and say, 'Larry and JJ hope you don't come,' because they don't really like
they
you very
want a
much."
one-on-one with y'all.
And so this is happening, and then my old
no.
boss calls at the same time and says, "Hey, we're putting together a contract out in Colorado. You want to come back?"
Yeah.
Aw.
We're thinking this is just Satan.
No, we're not coming back. We're having too much fun.
Okay, so then you said you had children.
Mhm.
So how did you involve them in your ministry? What are some ways that they helped you?
We just assumed it was just they were just part of it.
Yeah.
And they just learned. I remember early on we had Ellen. I would say go around and greet people and say hello, and she was so kind to do that. And she would go before services started and tell people hello and go and give hugs and things like that.
Aw.
And especially the older people really loved it,
Yeah.
until we learned several months into this happening that if you had white hair, she would not greet you. Of course, now we're talking about
What?
like a 4-year-old. I don't know if she had some sort of aversion to it. I don't know. So we had to do some coaching with that.
Oh, no.
But we just
That's
made
funny.
them part of it, and made it like. And I know she would refer to the youth group at that point, as her kids, and so we talk about it as our
Aw.
kids, and they were her kids,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and just made them part of it.
Oh yeah, she'd pray for them, call them by name every night. Everybody in the church called her Baby Ellen. A couple
That
of
is
weeks
precious.
ago, there was a lady from that church that showed up where Ellen worked, and Ellen's 28 now, and they remembered each other, and the lady said, "You're baby Ellen."
Oh,
28 years old, baby Ellen.
he's made impact
Yeah.
even at that age.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some challenges? What's a biggest challenge that y'all have had to overcome, a sacrifice that y'all have had to make?
Sacrifice, a big challenge. I think in everything that we've done or tried to do, there's learning curves.
Right.
With every new job, with every, conference, with every there's some different challenges that come with that. And some of it's working with different personalities, working with different people. Um I when I look back at it though, Kristen, it's so odd. I don't remember like one specific thing that's like, oh wow, yeah, we've had some heartaches and we've had some bad things that have happened to us and stuff like that, but I don't know. It's just a good life. God has just blessed us.
That's
It's hard to
wonderful.
complain because we're so
Yeah.
extremely blessed. But I think the challenges sometimes come from us being a little too self-reliant. And I know I think Satan uses autonomy a lot. Like, no, you got everything you need and you don't need God. And
Yeah.
I think that the culture that I grew up in was very much that way and very much that mindset because we did do a lot of things ourselves and on our
Yeah.
own and didn't need our parents' permission or whatever. And so that kind of bled over into that. And so I've had some lessons in that no, 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 you do need God. You do
Yeah.
need to rely and you do need to trust and see that he'll work it out.
Do you have anything you wanted to add to
Y-
that?
I mean, when you work through the challenges and you get on the other side and you start looking back, you don't see them anymore because you overcame it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it just doesn't seem that big anymore.
So how do y'all deal, maybe even today, deal with criticism? Because that goes with the job. You're gonna get that because you're, especially the bigger the congregation, the more people involved, the more you're involved, things are gonna come up because we can't please everybody. So how do y'all handle those types of criticism in ministry?
It's hard for me to take criticism from people I wouldn't ask advice from.
Ah, yes.
But I do appreciate and I think we treat everybody with kindness when that does happen. That's number one, is to be
Absolutely.
kind.
Absolutely.
But a lot of there's not just a ton of people, in our shoes in whatever they're criticizing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's difficult. But I think we just try to be nice. We try to be godly. We try to say thank you. We try, and sometimes it's best to just not respond, especially if if
Absolutely.
it's a text or an email or something that would like that. It's okay to not respond to it, and you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You can,
Absolutely.
you
That's
can
a
just
that's a
respect.
good.
Sometimes it's better just to keep your mouth closed,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of times criticism comes from a place where maybe they're just having an off day.
Yeah.
And I've had off days. I've been guilty of that kind of thing too. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to kind of give grace. I want to give as much grace as I can, because I need grace too.
I love that answer.
I naturally assume that whoever's offering the criticism is sincerely wanting for things to be better.
Oh,
And
that's a good
I want for
perspective.
things to be better too.
Yeah.
So on that we agree. Uh, and I appreciate it. And I might respond, thank you. I want to do better. I want to be better. And I appreciate you coming to me, and just leave it at that.
I love that. I love your answers. Those are, because it's hard in those moments. It is hard to know, because when from the people that we've met, I know like in ministry, you have pretty big hearts and you're trying to please the Lord, number one, but you're also trying to help other people grow and get closer to God. And, you do have those hurdles that come up and those criticisms. And so, like you're saying, like it's coming from a place of wanting things to be better, but at the same time, and I love that not answering. You don't have to
Yeah.
answer. You don't have to show up to that argument that
Right.
just because it's there. Just smile, love them, pray for them through
Right.
those moments. Absolutely. Okay, so how do you stay motivated and passionate about your work? Because y'all are involved in so many great things. Like we're currently at CYC, and how many people this year have registered?
We're sitting right at 12,000.
12,000 people. 12,000 people coming to be encouraged and to be educated and to grow and bond with their groups more spiritually. 12,000 people's souls are going to be here that y'all help get going. So what keeps y'all motivated? I mean, that alone would keep me motivated. I mean, 12,000 people, because how did y'all start off? How did
We had
see
about
what size
300 26 years ago,
Yeah.
and we couldn't have done this 26 years ago. We grew with the conference. We learned, we got educated,
We
we
didn't
made
know what we were doing.
mistakes, and still make mistakes. We're not
we
doing
wrote
perfect
those
yet.
criticisms, learned. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I think the motivation just comes from the excitement of this.
Yeah.
This is how often do you get a thing like this,
You know, we surround ourselves with a lot of people that are really good at what they do. And when you've got that many people around you, and it takes a lot of them that are really skilled and really talented, and you marshal those resources and have people in the right places, that alone is an encouragement to us, and that keeps us motivated. Just being in contact with them at all times,
Yeah.
and having that as your circle of influence.
Absolutely.
The
It takes a team.
relationships that we have built through CYC are what shaped us. The people that we've come in contact with through CYC, the youth ministers, the ministers, the elders,
Yeah.
has shaped us as parents, as adults. So we grew as the conference grew.
Would y'all be upset if I left the microphone and
No. Yeah.
walked
Speaking of
towards?
CYC, we've got to head out. Go for it.
Yeah, the
Thank you
doors
for
open in
joining
about
us.
5 minutes,
Yes.
and we're excited. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for sharing some of your time with us. We
Oh,
really
happy
appreciate
to.
it.
Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yes. All right, JJ, just a couple more questions. So we got to learn more about you guys. So what's a piece of advice that you would give to those discovering going into ministry? So we'll look at it from a different perspective too. So now that Larry's kind of out of the picture, let's talk about women in ministry. So if they feel that, and I don't mean preaching in front of men at a pulpit, that like
Right.
ladies' days, one-on-one Bible studies, whatever talent that they have to use in ministry, how do you encourage them to go about that?
Well, there's so many things out there that work well. There's so many Bible studies. There's so many, different things. Just find what speaks to you. Find the things that you're passionate about. Maybe
Yeah.
you read a book and you're like, oh wow, I remember reading, years ago, probably more than 20 years ago, the 5 love languages,
That's a good book.
and thinking this changed my life. Like
Mhm.
it changed my relationships with my family members. It changed the way that I treated people because I understood them better. Learning about personalities, changed my life. It
Yeah.
changed how it made me a better Christian. Find things that this is my niche. This is the things that I feel like I can speak about well. These are the things that I enjoy speaking about. And or if it's a Bible study, I'm a very casual Bible study type of person. I can have coffee and study the Bible with you, and you won't even realize we're studying the Bible,
Yeah.
for a minute. And so um I'm good at that kind of a thing, and Larry's really really good as well on one-on-one Bible studies and digging deep and all of that kind of stuff. But just find what you enjoy and start there, because when you enjoy it, when you get good results from that, when God's like you're planting those seeds
Yes.
and God's making that increase and you're seeing that's just, there's nothing better to see that, like a little effort here make that
Absolutely.
come to fruition.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And because it makes a difference in people's lives when you, well, one, when you feel that desire to please God, because, we're all called in different ways. Just, we all have different talents. I love to use it that way, and not necessarily the called part, but like God has blessed us with all these different talents,
Yeah.
and being able to find what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and focusing on that. And I feel like sometimes us women, we feel like we've got to have it all together, know all things, be able to do everything. And it gets overwhelming, and then you don't get good at
calling
anything.
Your calling can shift too. Like I feel
Yes.
ours
Oh,
did. I
absolutely.
mean, here we are, we're 49 and 60
Yeah.
and parents again to, babies. And
Hmm.
I never thought that would happen ever.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's what I'm called to do. And I'm so happy to do that. And I'm happy to, help in that way. So a lot of times what you go in thinking, oh, this is my calling, and it may be for that time or that
Yes.
season. You may have a different calling down the road that's new and exciting and where God wants you to be, and you're just like, okay, here we go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how do you measure success in ministry?
Larry said before, it's not about numbers. And I think that's so important. And you hear that. It's so cliche, oh, it's not about numbers. It really, because in a way, I mean, how else can we measure it, right?
Right.
Then, like, how many people are here? How many people
Yeah.
are sitting in class on Sunday morning, that kind of thing. But I really, for me personally, it is about relationships. It really is. And it's about having an impact. And as an educator,
Yes.
you want to be able to positively impact the students. You want them to leave the school and be able to say that teacher helped me. That teacher, I remember that teacher giving advice, and that teacher caring,
Yeah.
and that teacher being honest with me, which I probably do too much about things people need to work on because I've seen it myself too.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think it's really about the relationships.
I
It
agree.
really is. And
I agree. Because looking back at, our own lives, the people that made the biggest impact, the most encouragement, are the people who took time out of their time to encourage us, to see where we were in that moment, and to help us to get through, help us to be better, encouraging us
yeah.
in the good that we're doing.
Well, everybody's got those teachers and those elders' wives or
Absolutely.
those Bible class teachers that they can name that this person
Yeah.
made an impact on me. Not that I need to be in that, named like that, but
Well, you are.
I want to make
Just
an
saying.
effort. I want to do
Absolutely.
more than just my bare minimum job.
Absolutely. And it makes a difference. And I think that comes from deep within because, in ministry, you will come across people who it's not a natural thing to be loving and kind and willing to take that time. My favorite word right now is being interruptible. Being interruptible. Be
Oh,
like Jesus and be interruptible because, Jesus was on the way to preach. And then you had that woman that was bleeding and so desperate to be healed and, miserable, and just touched the garment, and he stopped and he took time to heal her.
yeah.
And like we have so many examples of
Yeah.
Jesus being interruptible.
Yeah.
And never once to like, oh, all right, Zacchaeus, come on, I'm going to your house, and
Well, and what's even
it's
cooler about that story, in my opinion, or just as cool, is
yeah,
that, Jesus said, who's touched me? Because he felt
yeah,
power go out, and they're like, everybody's touching you. What do
yeah,
you mean? Like,
yeah,
everybody's touching you.
yeah,
And he stopped to recognize her.
yes,
And he stopped to notice her.
amongst
And
all those people.
he didn't have to do that. She was
No,
already healed at that point,
yeah, yeah. I mean, we see the point, but in that moment, it's like, what's the point of that? Yeah.
Right.
But to be interruptible, to stop, and not everybody can do that gracefully. Not everybody can do that and make a good positive impact. So to have the heart like you have, and which is a great thing, because taking those moments, especially being in the education field, taking those moments for those kids, because not everybody gets that at home.
No.
And to have those little 5-minute, 2-minute moments can make a life changing impact
Yeah.
on people. And yeah, I've just been very surprised, that, and it's made me feel better because I'm like, well, what's mine? Well, like, what am I? But not everybody can stop and listen. And I love to just listen and care
Yeah.
and being comfortable and knowing that that is what you can do, and knowing that that's what God has given you, that peace and that way to recognize and to be able to listen and encourage it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal than a lot of people sometimes make it out to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're so geared to be thinking of what we're going to say next when people are talking to
Yeah.
us. And it is okay just to stop and listen,
Yeah.
and take a minute and take it in and because sometimes kids, especially teenagers, tell you things and they're not wanting an answer or a solution.
I just want to,
They just need to, it's just word vomit. And they're just needing to talk to you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's okay just to listen, and then they'll be like, "Well, thanks," and head right out.
And you feel like you didn't do anything.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. And
But
sometimes they just need that.
absolutely. Yes. I did a counseling class last semester, and he was talking about how it's okay not to give a quick answer, that it's okay for the awkward silence. And to me, I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't do awkward silence. I like to, let's keep things going. Let's talk. And if I don't have something, then I must be not intelligent enough, or they might think I'm not interested, but to know that having that silence and that the patience, and even like saying little prayers in your head before you say something, can give you such more a clear understanding of what to say and how to help and how to make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
But that just like totally surprised me and made me look back at other conversations I've had with very wise people and like, oh, there is something to this. They're not like in another world, or
Right.
they're wise to stop and to think before they speak. And that's okay. And the awkwardness is okay, but it's a little side
Yeah. And
note
a
thing
lot of
there. But
times that silence will give them an opportunity to go ahead and come up with that own solution themselves,
yes,
rather
that
than you
too.
feeding it to them because they've
Yes.
just heard their problem.
Yes, because once
Maybe.
you speak it out loud, it's totally different than in your head. I was telling Caleb something the other day, and I had an idea of a story or something I wanted to do, and it sounded so good in my head. And I'm like, Caleb, let me run this by you. And then I started telling him, and the more I listened to what I was saying, I'm like, okay, that does not come all together like I thought.
Just scratch that.
Scratch that one. Moving on. But it does make a difference. It does. Absolutely. Okay. So, I guess this last question. So, with all the things that you're doing, which you're doing so many wonderful things for the Lord, you've got your own podcast. You and Larry are now doing something new.
Yeah.
Tell everybody a little bit about
So
that.
exciting. We are doing a little tiny little, it's basically a reel. It's less than 90 seconds. So it's called As You Go. And every day during the school week, it is a little 90-second little Bible lesson, little spiritual truth, spiritual thought. And the reason for it is we ask our grown children, what helped you the most? Why are you faithful today? Like, what is the thing? And they said it was the trips to school, because we didn't
Wow.
listen to the radio, even though I'm a music person.
Yeah.
We didn't do that a whole lot. We
Yeah.
talked, and I taught, and we read Bible, and we read, you know, things that helped us in our character building. And we talked about how to react to people that weren't kind to us and all of those things. So we take a subject, whether it's being mean,
Okay.
or some rules we have at our house, like, we don't talk about other people's bodies. That's a rule we have at our house.
Love it.
We do talk about babies' bodies. They're okay because they can't get mad. But, we don't talk about other people's bodies. It's a good rule to have.
Absolutely.
And we have a biblical application on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we have a memory verse that we learn. On Thursday, we have a personal story about that, something that happened with us. And then Friday's a wrap up. So every day of the week, you're getting something about that subject.
Okay.
And then every week is new. And so that's called As You Go. You can find that on Facebook, and it's just a free little thing you can subscribe to and listen to on the way to school or just whenever.
Absolutely.
So
highly encourage it.
Oh, I love it. And it's really for elementary children, but I mean, I think middle schoolers are listening to it
It's a nice
too.
refresher reminder.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's a good thing. Because it's just a wasted time sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just 90 seconds.
Yeah. And it gives you, like you're saying, it gives you something that's directed and a purpose on the way, instead of just listening to the mindless music. But And that goes back to listening to people and taking time with your children. You have this captivated audience in that vehicle. Nobody can go anywhere.
Right.
And
Maybe this would be a catalyst for the parents talking.
yeah,
Oh, I had a situation where somebody was mean to me. Let me tell you about, what I did
Yes.
right or what I didn't do right.
Yes.
What I wish I had done better. Because not all of the personal stories that we tell are just glowing of, Larry and JJ don't come out looking good in them, which
Yeah.
is important too.
Absolutely.
We're real people. We make mistakes. We're sinners, and that's we want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a different category.
Right.
Yeah. We're sinners. We need Jesus.
Absolutely. JJ, I appreciate you and all that you do. I really do. Thank you for taking time. I'm not going to take too much more of your time. I know y'all are very busy. If you haven't come to CYC, I highly recommend CYC. It is always in February.
Usually the last full weekend of February.
Last full weekend in February. So mark it on for next year if you are not here this year. Thanks again.
Thank you.
In the links, in the comments, I'm going to post some links to some of their stuff that they have going on because you definitely want to take time to check those out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks
Thank you
again.
so much. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Good to see you.
Thanks again for joining.